Lily Johnson's tears fell onto the cold linoleum floor as the last silver braid clattered at her feet, each strand a testament to her stolen dignity. In the harsh glow of the classroom light, humiliation wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing every ounce of childhood joy from her trembling frame. The buzz of clippers echoed louder than her own son's, a cruel reminder that her identity had become someone else's threat. Her small body ached with betrayal, the trust she'd placed in her teacher shattered in a single merciless moment. And when her mother's voice crackled through the intercom, it would ignite a reckoning no one in Oakville could ignore. What happened next shocked everyone and set off a chain of events no one saw coming. Stay with me. This is a story you need to hear. Before we start the story, comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from today. And if you find this story impactful, don't forget to subscribe for more. A pale light slipped through the kitchen window as Sarah Johnson stirred a pot of oatmeal on the stove. Outside, the wind whispered through the budding elm trees that lined Maple Avenue, carrying with it the promise of late spring. In the warm, amber glow of the oil lamp, Sarah's hands moved with practiced care, measuring oats, stirring in just enough brown sugar, while her daughter Lily sat at the worn breakfast table, tracing patterns in the wood grain with restless fingers. Lily's small frame was curled into the chair, her legs swinging just above the floor. She wore her favorite pink cardigan, the one with tiny daisies embroidered along the hem, and beneath it, a crisp white blouse that Sarah had ironed the night before. Lily's hair, once a crown of soft curls, lay tamed into braids, each strand glossy and neat. She picked at the edge of her bowl, but barely tasted the oatmeal. Her eyes, wide and dark, flicked toward the clock on the wall. 6:45, and the bus would arrive in 15 minutes. "Eat a bit more, sweetheart," Sarah coaxed. Her voice was gentle, each syllable soft as spring rain. "You know how busy you like the playground to be." She tried to coax a smile from Lily, but the girl only offered a sideways glance. There was tension in Lily's shoulders, a cautious brace, as though she expected something to go awry at any moment. Sarah watched her daughter closely, her heart tightening. Only yesterday, Lily had come home in tears. "She said my hair was wrong," Lily whispered, voice trembling. Sarah had knelt beside her then, lifting those delicate braids to look for any sign of damage. But Lily's hair was fine. It was her teacher's words, sharp and unkind, that had cut deeper than any scissors could. In the pale dawn, Sarah brushed a loose curl from Lily's forehead and pressed a kiss to her temple. "You're beautiful, Lily," she said. "Never forget that." Lily nodded, but the tremor in her chin betrayed her doubt. Down the hallway, the wooden floorboards creaked under Lily's weight as she gathered her satchel. It was a new bag, deep navy with silver stars stitched across its face. Sarah had found it in a small shop last weekend, hoping to give Lily something bright to carry on difficult days. Lily tucked it over her shoulder, the strap snug against her back. The front door swung open, and a swirl of cool air rushed in, carrying the scent of damp grass and early blossoms. Sarah wrapped a light scarf around Lily's neck and adjusted her coat collar. The neighborhood lay quiet, save for the distant chirping of robins and the hum of a mail truck turning down the street. Daffodils nodded near the mailbox, their yellow heads brushing against the white picket fence. It all seemed peaceful, too peaceful, Sarah thought. Even now, she felt the undercurrent of unease that had shadowed their mornings. "Be brave today," Sarah whispered, smoothing Lily's scarf. Lily took a deep breath, nodding once firmly, as if sealing a promise. Her small hand slipped into her mother's, warm and trusting. Together, they stepped off the porch. A block away, the yellow school bus rolled to a stop, gravel crunching beneath its tires. Lily let go of her mother's hand and climbed the steps, giving Sarah a quick wave before seating herself by the window. Sarah watched until the bus lurched forward and turned the corner, the tail lights blinking like gentle warnings against the dim sky. Inside the bus, Lily settled in behind two boys chatting about the latest baseball scores. She hugged her satchel to her chest, the silver stars glinting in the morning light. Through the window, she watched the world blur past, green lawns, blossoming trees, the occasional jogger, and tried to steady her heartbeat. She thought of Mrs. Carter, her new teacher, and the way the woman's lips had curled when she spoke about proper appearance. Lily swallowed, willing herself to believe that today might be different. When the bus reached the schoolyard, children spilled out like marbles rolling across a wooden floor, their laughter echoing against the brick walls of Oakville Elementary. Lily stepped off and joined the stream, her heart thrumming with nervous energy. The playground was alive with games. Hopscotch chalked onto the asphalt, a spirited game of tag, a jump rope swinging in rhythmic arcs. Lily's friends, Carlos and Emma, waved her over, their faces bright with midday sun. "Did you see the new slide?" Emma asked, tugging at Lily's sleeve. "It's huge." Carlos bounced on his heels. "Yeah, but Mr. Henderson says we're only allowed 3 turns each." He rolled his eyes, and Lily managed a small laugh, letting herself be pulled toward the bright red slide. For a moment, the worry in her chest loosened, replaced by the simple joy of childhood. But even as she climbed the ladder, her stomach tightened again. Mrs. Carter's classroom window faced the playground, and Lily could almost see the teacher's dark silhouette behind the glass, tall, severe, hands clasped as she watched. Lily paused on the top rung, glancing over her shoulder, every sense alert. Inside the classroom, light spilled through high windows, illuminating rows of tiny desks. Mrs. Carter had arranged them in neat lines, each polished, with surface gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The chalkboard was spotless, save for her name scrawled in perfect cursive at the top, Margaret Carter. Beneath it, a list of rules: respect, order, focus. Lily had read those words twice before, tracing each letter with the tip of her finger. She'd noticed other things, too. The smell of lavender lingering in the air, the precise way Mrs. Carter folded her hands in front of her, the sharp click of her heels on the tile floor. There was an elegance about the teacher, but Lily sensed a rigidity that left no room for mistakes or for softness. As the bell rang, children scrambled to their seats. Lily tucked her satchel under her chair and pressed her palms to her knees, chin lifted. Mrs. Carter stood at the front, a tall figure in a dark skirt and crisp blouse, hair pinned back in a tight knot. She surveyed the room, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Good morning, class," she said, voice cool and measured. Her gaze swept the desks, lingering a moment on Lily. "I trust you are all ready to learn." Lily's heart fluttered. She met the teacher's eyes and held her breath. There was something in Margaret Carter's expression, an unreadable pause, before the woman turned and lifted a book from the podium. Lily exhaled, letting her shoulders drop. Outside, the sky deepened into morning, clouds drifting high above the schoolyard like silent witnesses. Sarah, already at work in her tiny flower shop across town, would receive Lily's call at 3 o'clock, ready to embrace whatever had transpired in those 6 short hours. But as the children opened their books and pencils whispered across paper, an undercurrent of tension rippled through the room, an unspoken question hanging in the air, waiting for its time to be asked. And in that hush, Lily pressed her pencil to the page, her small voice ready to speak, though the words had not yet formed. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp-edged shadows through the windows, and the day began in earnest. The moment the intercom crackled in Mrs. Carter's classroom, Lily's pencil froze mid-scribble. A brittle voice, too formal for a school announcement, floated through the speakers. "Attention, students of Oakville Elementary. We've had a confirmed case of head lice in Mrs. Carter's second-grade class. All students in this class must report to room 12 immediately." A ripple passed through the room. Carlos swallowed hard. Emma's eyes darted to the clock, 10:30 a.m., nearly mid-morning. Lily's stomach pitched into her throat. She looked down at her braids, neat, glossy, exactly as her mother had done them at dawn. Her breath came in shallow splices. Mrs. Carter stood at the front, jaw set. The rigid line of her skirt brushed the floor as she clicked her heels together, then cleared her throat. "Students," she said, voice even, "please gather your belongings and follow me, quietly and in single file." Her gaze swept the room, pausing on Lily with an unsettling precision. Lily's heart hammered. She rose, knee joint stiff. Each child whispered under their breath as they filed past her desk. Grown UPS whispered in the hallway. Voices low, urgent, buzzing like frightened bees. Through the doorway, she saw Principal Davies waiting, clipboard in hand, his silver hair catching the sun from a high window. Outside, the corridor smelled of waxed floors and antiseptic cleaner. The line of children wound toward room 12, where the door stood ajar. Lily's pulse rattled in her temples. She'd never been separated from her class before. When Mrs. Carter spoke again, her voice was soft, almost conspiratorial. "This won't take long," she said. "We need to ensure everyone is safe." A single bulb flickered above the center of the room, casting a pool of harsh white light onto the vinyl floor. Desks were pushed aside, forming a semicircle around an old salon chair, leather cracked at the edges, a tarnished metal bowl at its base. Lily's eyes widened. She recognized the chair from the beauty shop down the street, the one where her mother had once taken her for a trim. Carlos whispered, "Are they going to—" He didn't finish the question. Emma shook her head, lips pressed tight. Mrs. Carter motioned for Lily to step forward. "Lily Johnson?" Her voice held no kindness. "Please have a seat." Lily's legs trembled as she climbed onto the stool. The other children formed a silent ring around her. Lily looked at each face, some curious, some terrified, then down at her lap, where her fingers knotted together. Mrs. Carter crouched beside her, gloved hands steady. She held up a magnifying glass. "I need to check your scalp for lice," she said, her tone clinical. She lifted a braid, parting the glossy strands. Lily gulped. She closed her eyes, waiting for the goddess of shame to strike. There was a long moment of stillness. Then Mrs. Carter straightened, dropping the braid back into place. "It looks clear," she announced. Relief blossomed in Lily's chest, and she dared to peek at her blonde-pink sneakers. But the relief was fleeting. Mrs. Carter's gaze hardened. "However," she said, voice dropping so low only Lily could hear, "you know the school policy. Head-to-toe cleanliness. No exceptions." Lily's throat constricted. "But I don't have lice," she whispered. Mrs. Carter lifted the magnifying glass again, her shoulders taut. "This is for everyone's safety," she murmured, gently yanking another braid free. Lily's breath caught. Then in one swift motion, Mrs. Carter produced a pair of clippers, a small, corded device that hummed when switched on. The sound cut through the hush like a blade. Lily's eyes shot open. "Please," she tried to say, but her voice was trembling. "I'm sorry, Lily," Mrs. Carter said, mask thin. She set the clippers to her head. "School policy." A child somewhere gasped. The hum of the clippers rose to a whine. Lily felt the first brush of plastic against her scalp and blinked back hot tears. The chair beneath her felt cold, unyielding. Outside, in the hallway, the intercom clicked again. Lily heard her mother's voice, familiar, warm. "Echo, Sarah Johnson to the office, please." The world went suddenly still. Lily froze, clippers halfway through shaving her braid. Mrs. Carter's hand still. She glanced toward the door, face ashen. Through the doorway, Lily saw her mother's silhouette, backlit by the afternoon sun pouring in from the glass panels. Sarah Johnson's posture was rigid, unwavering. Behind her, the hall stretched empty, save for the janitor's cart parked against the lockers. "This," Mrs. Carter whispered, voice unsteady. The clippers hum died. A single curl drifted from Lily's head onto the floor, dark against the linoleum. Lily's fingers curled into fists. She tried to speak, but only a sob wobbled from her lips. Sarah stepped inside, eyes widening at the scene, the clippers in Mrs. Carter's hand, the half-shorn braids, the circle of children staring in shock. "Mrs. Carter," she said, voice low but steady. Lily looked up and saw the calm fury in her mother's eyes. Mrs. Carter's mouth opened and closed. I was following protocol," she stammered, stare flicking to the fallen curls. "Protocol." Lily's chest ached. She remembered the whispered rumors in the hallway, the hushed teachers' meetings, the frantic calls home. But this was humiliation, something Sarah had always told Lily would never define her. Sarah knelt beside Lily's chair, gathering the fallen braids in her hand. She looked at her daughter, eyes full of hurt and love. Then she stood, putting herself between Lily and Mrs. Carter. "There is no policy that allows you to shave my daughter's head," Sarah said, voice calm but cold. "Not without my permission." Mrs. Carter straightened, face drained of color. The children shifted on their feet. Principal Davies hurried into the room, his clipboard slipping from his grasp. "Sarah Johnson," he said, startled, "is everything?" Sarah didn't look at him. Instead, she fixed her gaze on Mrs. Carter. "I want an explanation," she said. Mrs. Carter's hands trembled. "There was a case of lice," she began, voice quivering. I was trying to protect the other students." Sarah's laugh was quiet but carried a sharp edge. "A check, perhaps," she said. "But a haircut?" Mrs. Carter's eyes flitted to the door, as though scouting an escape route. I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. Sarah turned to Lily and lifted her chin. One look at Lily's face, red-rimmed eyes, a small patch of bare scalp, brought Sarah's own restraint to its limit. "Sit here," Sarah said, guiding Lily off the chair. She wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders and directed a gaze at Principal Davies. "I'd like to take her home. We'll sort this out privately." He nodded, still pale. "Of course." As they left, Lily clung to her mother, tears still damp on her cheeks. Behind them, in the stale hush of room 12, Mrs. Carter sank to the floor, hands pressed to her mouth as if to muffle a sob. Outside, the afternoon sun felt cruel on Lily's bare spots. Sarah held her close, voice low, soothing, "You're okay, honey. You're safe now." But as they rounded the corner toward the parking lot, Sarah's mind raced. Who had whispered in Mrs. Carter's ear to take such drastic measures? Had someone in the school grown tired of her daughter's thick black braids, the proud emblem of her heritage? Was there a darker motive than lice? Lily leaned against her mother, exhaustion and humiliation heavy in her limbs. Yet in her chest, beneath the ache, there flickered a spark of something new. Anger, bewilderment, and a steely resolve that whatever lay ahead, she would stand tall. Sarah opened the car door and helped Lily inside, brushing a hand through her daughter's sparse hair. "We're going to get you fixed up," she promised, but her own voice cracked on the last word. As they drove away, Oakville Elementary receded in the rearview mirror, its red brick walls now stained in Sarah's mind by betrayal. Mrs. Carter's rigid morals had cracked, revealing something brittle and ugly beneath. And somewhere deep inside Lily, a question took root. If the people meant to protect her could turn so suddenly against her, where could she ever feel truly safe? The engine's hum filled the space between mother and daughter, carrying them toward home. But their world had already shifted. The rules had changed, and in the quiet, rolling miles ahead, both Sarah and Lily would begin to discover just how far the wounds of that morning would reach. The house was quiet when Sarah carried Lily inside late that afternoon. Sunlight still pooled on the hardwood floors, but the joy of spring felt distant now, edged with hurt. Sarah shut the door gently and guided Lily toward the living room, where a soft blanket lay ready on the couch. Lily sat down, cradling her bare head, fingertips tracing the smooth skin where her braids had been. "I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered, settling beside her daughter. She wrapped the blanket around Lily's shoulders like a cloak. Lily leaned against her mother, eyes closed. In that small, still space, Sarah felt the weight of everything. The shock, the anger, the deep ache of having failed to protect her child. When Lily finally spoke, her voice was barely more than a whisper. "Why did she do it, Mommy?" Sarah drew a shaky breath. She had no answer she could give that would make sense to a 7-year-old. Instead, she said, "Sometimes people do wrong things when they're scared, or when they're told it's right." Her words felt hollow, even as she spoke them. Lily's head throbbed, but it was the betrayal that hurt most. A teacher meant to guide and protect had chosen humiliation over compassion. That evening, over bowls of soup Sarah had prepared with extra care, they tried to find normal again. Lily dipped her spoon into the warm broth, the steam curling around her small face. She raised the spoon, then paused. "Do you think I'm ugly now?" Sarah's heart cracked. "No," she said firmly. Later, after Lily fell asleep, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, the half-finished dishes forgotten. She replayed the day in her mind. The click of the clippers, the thud of each braid as it hit the floor, the horror in Lily's eyes. She thought of Mrs. Carter's tight lips and the pale look of regret when Sarah walked in. There had been regret. She couldn't deny that, but also coldness. Sarah frowned, realizing it was that mix that unsettled her more than anything. The next morning, Lily stayed home. Sarah tucked her into bed with a stack of picture books, promising they would read together all day. Then Sarah drove to Oakville Elementary, the same yellow brick building that had betrayed them. She parked in the lot and sat for a moment, hand on the steering wheel. Her stomach twisted as she recalled meeting Principal Davies and Mrs. Carter in the hallway. He had been flustered, offering apologies that sounded rehearsed. She wanted truth more than words. Inside the front office, Principal Davies looked up from his desk. His normally calm face was pinched with worry. "Sarah," he greeted, glancing at the sign-in sheet. "Thank you for coming." Sarah forced a polite nod. "I want to understand exactly what happened," she said, her tone steady. He sighed and motioned her to a visitor's chair. There was a case of head lice in several classrooms. As a precaution, Mrs. Carter, well, she took it upon herself to ensure the problem was dealt with immediately. His eyes flicked to the door, as if expecting Mrs. Carter to burst in and explain herself. "By shaving my daughter's head?" Sarah asked, voice low. He rubbed his forehead. It seems her judgment was clouded. She believed it was the only way to protect the other students. She regrets how she handled it. Regret. Sarah tasted the word and found it empty. "I'd like to meet with her," she said. "Just the two of us." He hesitated, then picked up the phone and dialed. A minute later, Mrs. Carter appeared in the doorway, her hair in the same tight knot, but her posture slumped. She wore a simple gray dress and flats, her hands clasped in front of her as if in prayer. "Sarah," she began, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry." Sarah held out her hand to Mrs. Carter. "Please call me Sarah." Margaret Carter nodded, lips pressed tight. She sat, folding and unfolding her hands. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Sarah asked, "Why did you think taking her hair was right?" Mrs. Carter's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared. I'd heard about lice outbreaks, and I panicked. I thought if I removed her braids, it would stop the spread." She swallowed. "I know it was wrong." Sarah leaned forward. "But I can't help wondering if it was just about lice." She studied Mrs. Carter's face. "Lily is the only black girl in your class. Did anyone else talk to you about her?" A flash of anger crossed Mrs. Carter's face. She blinked it away. "No," she whispered. "It had nothing to do with race. I'm not that kind of person." Sarah's gaze didn't soften. "I need to believe that," she said, "because this went beyond protocol. This was personal." Across the desk, Principal Davies cleared his throat. "We're conducting a full review," he said. "Mrs. Carter will be on leave until it's complete." Mrs. Carter stared at the floor. "I understand." Sarah stood. "Thank you for telling me the truth," she said, though it felt hollow. As she left the office, she realized the school's promise of safety now felt like a lie. Back home, Lily greeted Sarah with a shy smile. Carlos and Emma arrived soon after, backpack swinging, smiles tentative. Lily rushed to them, lifting her head to show the bare patches. Emma gasped and touched one spot lightly. "Lily, I'm so sorry." Carlos gave her a quick hug. "You're still you." Their kindness warmed Lily's heart, but she remembered how quickly whispers had turned to laughter on the playground. Her friend's sympathy was comforting and fragile. That night, Sarah tucked Lily into bed again and told her she'd arranged a visit to a stylist the next day. Lily nodded, clutching her teddy bear. Sarah kissed her forehead and flicked off the light. As she walked to the door, Lily called out, "Mom?" Sarah paused. "I'm scared to go back," Lily said, voice small. "What if she does something worse?" Sarah knelt beside her, sliding an arm around her. "I promise, I won't let anyone hurt you again." Lily closed her eyes. "Promise. Promise." Sarah rose and left, but she couldn't shake her own doubts. Over the next few days, Sarah immersed herself in research, school policies, state regulations, legal precedents. She consulted friends who worked in education and spoke to parents whose children had suffered discrimination. Each conversation revealed a new crack in the system: vague rules, unchecked biases, a culture of silence. Meanwhile, Mrs. Carter sat at home in a neat little house not far away. She stared at the morning light on her dresser mirror, her reflection distorted by regret. She replayed the incident in her mind, wondering if she'd misjudged Lily's hair at all. She'd seen the thickness, the way it refused to lie flat, and something in her mind had whispered, "unclean." That whisper haunted her now. At the Johnsons', evening meals became quiet affairs. Sarah and Lily ate side by side, eyes often fixed on their own plates. Over bowls of macaroni and cheese, Lily finally spoke. "Do you think Mrs. Carter is a bad person?" Sarah looked at her daughter's earnest face. "I think she made a terrible mistake," she said. "But people can learn and change." Lily chewed thoughtfully. "Will she come back to school?" "I don't know." Sarah sighed. "I have to decide if she can teach you. For now, I think I'll ask for someone else." Lily's shoulders slumped. "Okay." As she lay in bed that night, Lily thought of school, the smell of crayons, the chalk dust in the air, the circle time when she loved to sing songs with her classmates. She missed everything, even Mrs. Carter's stern voice. Still, beneath the longing was a seed of resolve. She would learn again eventually, and she would not let this mistake define her. Sarah watched her from the doorway, tears behind her eyes. She whispered a prayer of thanks that Lily's spirit remained unbroken, and another for the courage she would need to fight the hidden forces at work in that school. Outside, the wind rustled the elm trees along Maple Avenue. In the Johnson house, the storm had passed for now, but the clouds still gathered on the horizon. Act 2 had begun. Loyalties would shift, masks would fall, and every character would have to face the truths they had long kept hidden. The week that followed felt like walking through water. Each morning, Lily hesitated at the threshold of her room, tracing the faint shadow of her clipped curls with trembling fingers. Sarah tried everything: new hats, gentle scalp treatments, even drawing little daisies on Lily's mirror to remind her of beauty, but nothing could pull the sting from her daughter's eyes. Lily's laughter, once bright and easy, came in startled bursts now, as if she were afraid it might vanish. One rainy afternoon, Sarah found Lily huddled on the living room floor, drawing small figures in chalk on a blackboard they'd hung for art projects. The figures all wore the same expression, their mouths turned down in lines of sorrow. Lily tapped the chalk, her gaze distant. "Why did she really do it, Mommy?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. Sarah knelt by her side, taking in the tiny faces. "I wish I knew," she said, "but I'm going to find out." That evening, Sarah received an email notification. Oakville Elementary PTA meeting next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. She hesitated before replying, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then she typed, "I will attend." She needed answers, and she suspected the school office alone wouldn't give them. On Tuesday, the school cafeteria smelled of peanut butter sandwiches and stale linoleum. Under harsh fluorescent lights, folding tables had been arranged in a long U shape. PTA parents filled the chairs, smiling nods and polite small talk, while Sarah slipped in and found a seat near the center. Across the table sat Linda Thompson, Emma's mother, whose warm voice and ready laugh had comforted Sarah when she first came to town. Linda turned at Sarah's entrance and offered a bright wave, then returned to the meeting. Principal Davies called the meeting to order, thanking everyone for their support after the recent incident. He spoke of protocol reviews and sensitivity training, assuring the parents that Oakville Elementary would learn from its mistakes. The words washed over Sarah like rain on glass, present but never penetrating. When the formal agenda ended, Linda rose and suggested a smaller discussion. "Sarah, can you stay after for a moment?" she asked, voice low and encouraging. Sarah nodded and waited until the parents filtered out into the rainy night. In the deserted cafeteria, under the lone humming bulb, Linda closed the door behind them. She sounded anxious, cheeks pale. "I'm so sorry about what happened to Lily," she whispered. "I can't imagine how you feel." Sarah crossed her arms. "Thank you," she said, keeping her voice even. But I have questions. Linda led her to a row of coat hooks against the wall. She hung her raincoat, then turned. What do you want to know? Everything, Sarah said. I want to know who Mrs. Carter is. Who insisted this had to happen? Linda's lips pressed together. A shadow flickered across her face, something almost like guilt, before she plastered on concern. I've been asking around, she said. Several teachers told me there was a lice warning from the health board. Sarah raised an eyebrow, but the health board issued no such warning. Linda blinked. Well, there was talk. She tugged at her pearl necklace. Look, Margaret felt pressured. She thought she was doing the right thing for the class. Margaret, Sarah repeated. You mean Mrs. Carter? Yes, Linda said quickly. I spoke to her. I told her she couldn't let one child endanger the others. I meant well. You told her to shave Lily's head? Sarah's voice cracked with disbelief. Linda took a sharp breath. No, she protested. I didn't tell her to shave anyone's head. I said she needed to take drastic action, make an example if necessary. I was angry about rumors of head lice coming from a child with exotic hair. I didn't know she'd go that far. Sarah started. Exotic. Linda's voice was softer now. I realize how that sounds, but some parents were concerned, and I tried to calm them down. I wanted to protect all the children. I didn't think Margaret would actually use clippers. Sarah felt a cold churn in her stomach. You, a parent, told a teacher to humiliate my daughter because of her hair? Linda's eyes brimmed. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to hurt Lily. In that moment, Sarah saw behind Linda's polished smile the same rigid fear that had driven Mrs. Carter. The betrayal cut sharper than any blade. It had come from someone they trusted, someone Lily considered a friend's mother. Sarah's head swam. I'm leaving, she said, voice hollow. She turned and strode toward the exit, water dripping from her coat, but paused at the door. You've broken my trust, she said over her shoulder. Then she was gone, leaving Linda alone with the empty chairs and her own regret. That night, Sarah found Lily playing quietly with her dolls. The little wooden house sat impeccably arranged on the rug, but Lily's eyes were distant as her hands moved peg figures through pretend rooms. Sarah sat down beside her. Lily, she began softly. Lily paused the game and looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but clear. Mom, I need to tell you something about Mrs. Thompson. Lily frowned. Emma's mom? Sarah nodded. She encouraged Mrs. Carter to take harsh steps. She used words like exotic and dangerous. Lily's hand tightened around the doll she held. She rose, setting the doll down with care. Why would she do that? Sarah swallowed. I think she was afraid. Afraid of something she didn't understand. Lily's bottom lip trembled. She closed her eyes and pressed her fingers to her temple. When she opened them, they were hard. Emma's my friend, she whispered. Are you sure? Sarah hesitated. She said it herself. Lily's shoulders shook as her tears finally fell. I trusted her, she sobbed, then ran from the room. In her daughter's empty place, Sarah felt the weight of betrayal deepen, a web of fear and prejudice stretching wider than she'd ever imagined. That night, she made 2 promises, one to Lily that she would rebuild her world of trust, the other to herself that she would not rest until Oakville Elementary was free of the hidden biases that had cost her daughter her innocence. Over the next few days, Lily refused to play with Emma. At the park, she watched from afar as Emma swung on the swings, her mother standing close by, worry etched on her face. Lily's chest ached with the loss of friendship, but beneath the sorrow was something new, a fierce resolve. She would not be broken, and Sarah, sleepless and driven, began drafting her next move. A formal complaint to the school board, a petition among parents who believed in true inclusion, and a series of articles for the local paper. The betrayal had opened her eyes. The system was flawed in ways she hadn't known. Now, she would shine a light on it, no matter how many dark corners it took to find the truth. In the days ahead, alliances would shift. Faces she trusted might turn away, but Sarah and Lily would stand together, stronger for the wounds they had endured, and ready for the fight that was just beginning. The morning light seeped through the bedroom curtains in thin, pale slivers as Lily Johnson stirred awake. Her small hand went to the top of her head, searching for vanished braids. The smooth skin felt strange beneath her fingers, a constant reminder of what had been taken. She lay very still, eyes wide in the dim room, listening for her mother's footsteps. When Sarah slipped in, soft as a shadow, Lily let out the breath she'd been holding. "Good morning, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, brushing a stray curl from Lily's forehead. The word sweetheart felt strange, too, like a sound she had to convince herself to say. She perched on the edge of the bed, careful not to wake the empty echoes of Lily's curls. "How did you sleep?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Lily folded her arms, hugging a pillow to her chest. "I dreamt they were cutting my hair again," she said, voice small, "and I couldn't stop them." Her lower lip trembled. Sarah's heart nodded. She reached out, stroking Lily's arm. "I'm so sorry," she said. "It was only a dream." But to Lily, nightmares were only part of the fear. She rose from the bed and went to the mirror, where her reflection stared back. 7 years old, eyes large in a pale face, hair clipped close like a signal that something was wrong. She looked away, touching her ears as if the sight was too painful. Sarah watched her daughter's anguish, then made a decision. "Today, I'll take you to see Mrs. Patel," she said, naming the stylist at the salon downtown. "She's going to help your scalp feel better, and we'll pick out a new hat that you like." Lily shrugged, not enthusiastic, but she didn't protest. Any act of care was a balm. Over steaming cups of hot chocolate, they drove through quiet streets. Rain threatened in the sky, turning asphalt shiny. Sarah's thoughts thundered. The upcoming school board hearing, the articles she planned to submit to the local paper, the angry call from another parent who accused her of stirring trouble. She pressed her thumbs into the steering wheel, tasting her own fear. Every choice she made for justice risked Lily's fragile peace. At the salon, Mrs. Patel greeted them with warm eyes. She spoke in gentle tones, massaging scented oil into Lily's scalp, humming softly. "You're safe here," Mrs. Patel murmured. Lily's shoulders relaxed as if a weight were lifted. For a moment, Sarah felt hope. Yet even as she watched the stylist's careful fingers, Sarah felt the tension coil tighter. Time was slipping, and the school board meeting loomed in 2 days. That afternoon, Lily peeked out at the rain from her bedroom window. She held a new cap, striped navy and white, against her head, trying it on sheepishly. "Do I look okay?" she asked. Sarah smiled, though her heart quavered. Lily did look okay, but okay wasn't enough anymore. The world would see her first by that bare scalp. How would her classmates react? Could Lily bear their pity, their stares? Later, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, papers strewn before her. The formal complaint, drafts of letters, lists of parents to contact. She'd arranged a meeting with Mrs. Thompson and with Principal Davies. She knew each meeting carried risk. Another apology from Mrs. Carter might placate some, but Sarah saw a deeper rot. She needed policy change, public recognition of bias, and a commitment to real inclusion. Yet, every demand she made felt like a hammer blow against her own fragile peace. She hated seeing Lily's hope wilt under each new plan. The next morning, the rain returned in steady sheets. Sarah walked Lily to the school gate, bracing against the wind. Children clustered under umbrellas, laughter mingling with the patter of rain. Lily's friends, Emma and Carlos, greeted her with cautious smiles. They'd written little notes for her. "We miss you and you're brave." Emma reached out to touch Lily's hat brim. Lily flinched. She pulled away, clutching her satchel, and hurried inside without a word. Sarah's heart sank. The betrayal had spread its poison even among those who meant her no harm. Inside the school, Sarah waited in a narrow conference room with Principal Davies. His face was lined with exhaustion. "I want to assure you," he began, "we're taking steps to review all our health and discipline policies. But I must be careful. This process takes time." His words felt like a shield, polite and hollow, between Sarah and the justice she sought. Sarah steadied her voice. "I understand. Obstacles exist. But Lily's scar is not only in her hair, it's here." She tapped her chest. Every day, she sees that bare scalp and remembers what happened. I'm not asking only for policy review. I'm asking for real action, bias training, transparent procedures, apologies from every teacher who said nothing. She looked straight at him, willing him to see beyond the brick walls. He drew a breath. I'll bring your requests to the board. His tone was respectful, but his eyes flickered with doubt. He needed time, and Sarah didn't have that luxury. The second the door closed behind her, she felt both relief and dread. Relief at speaking her truth, dread of how little it might change things. On her way home, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from the editor at the Oakville Gazette. How soon can I have that op-ed? The paper wanted to run an article about Lily's story. Sarah hesitated. Public opinion could swing the board's decision, but exposing Lily to scrutiny risked more harm. She typed back, I'll send it tonight. That evening at home, Lily sat cross-legged on the living room rug, coloring inside the lines of a princess castle. She hummed softly, but her brow was furrowed. Sarah knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair behind Lily's ear. Tomorrow I have to speak before the board, she said, voice gentle. I need you to know, I'll talk about what happened to you. I won't say anything to hurt you, but I will ask them to do better. Lily's eyes darted to the cap on her head. Will they make things right? She asked. Sarah swallowed. I hope so, she said, but it's not guaranteed. She clasped Lily's hand. That's why I need your help. You can tell me when you're scared, and I promise I'll protect you. Lily nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her gaze. That night, Sarah paced the living room while Lily slept. She turned her notes over and over, rewriting phrases to strike the right balance between righteous anger and reasoned appeal. She worried Mrs. Carter might make a public apology, shifting blame onto administrators. She worried fellow parents might accuse her of overreacting. She worried for Lily's safety if the story provoked backlash. With every thought, the tension inside her wound tighter, like a spring about to snap. When the dawn came, Sarah practiced her speech in the mirror. She spoke of fairness, respect, and the power of a simple apology. She spoke of a mother's love and a child's courage. Her voice caught at the memory of Lily's tears. When she finished, she stood in the silence and exhaled, ready, she hoped, for the fight ahead. Across town, Lily awoke with a jolt, dream-fogged eyes searching for her mother. She dressed in bright pajamas, as if to challenge the gloom. At breakfast, she spooned cereal with more focus than usual, determined to be brave. Sarah kissed her forehead, seeing both her daughter's fear and her resolve. They exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. Together, they would face whatever came. As they walked to school, rain clouds parted, and a pale sun broke through. Sarah took Lily's hand. In that moment, between shadow and light, they held on to hope, knowing the journey would test them, but determined to press on. The tension had reached a breaking point. Tomorrow, their worlds would collide with the school board, and only then would they discover whether justice could truly heal a wound so deep. The packed meeting room felt cooler than the spring air outside, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Rows of folding chairs stretched from the double doors to the long oak table at the front, where 7 board members sat in stiff leather seats. A single window high on the far wall let in a pale, washed-out light. Sarah Johnson stood just inside the doorway, Lily's small hand clasped in hers. Their footsteps sounded loud on the polished tile. Sarah guided Lily to an empty seat halfway back. Lily's fingers curled around her mother's, knuckles white. Sarah knelt beside her, smoothing the brim of Lily's navy cap. Remember, she whispered, you're safe. I'm right here. Lily nodded, chin lifting as if she trusted those words more than any promise she had ever heard. At the front, Principal Davies called the meeting to order, voice low. We're here to address the recent events in Mrs. Carter's classroom, he began. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Mrs. Thompson sat at the table's edge, shoulders slumped, her pearl necklace glinting in the light. Margaret Carter stood behind her, eyes downcast, hands clasped before her skirt. Sarah's chest tightened. They opened with formalities, minutes read, apologies from the administration. Then came Sarah's name on the agenda, public comment. The clerk tapped a gavel. Ms. Johnson, you may speak. Sarah rose. Her heels clicked against the floor. She paused, breath steadying, and let her gaze sweep the room. Board members, parents, teachers, and at the back, Lily, small but watching. Sarah began in a clear voice. My daughter Lily was humiliated in her second-grade classroom. Her braids were shaved off, not for lice treatment, as claimed, but because someone decided her hair was exotic, dangerous even, that someone was Margaret Carter, led on by parents who feared what they didn't understand. Today, I stand here not only for my daughter, but for every student who has ever felt othered. Her words cut through the hush. She reached into her bag and held up a lock of Lily's hair, preserved in a clear plastic bag. This is not just hair. It's identity, pride, heritage. She turned slightly so Mrs. Carter and Mrs. Thompson could see. I trusted you, Oakville Schools, to protect my child. Instead, you betrayed her. I refuse to let this pass as an honest mistake. I demand real change. A clear policy that respects every culture, mandatory bias training for all staff, and a heartfelt public apology to Lily. A tremor ran through the room. Margaret Carter's face drained of color, and Mrs. Thompson's shoulders jerked as though bracing for a blow. Sarah lowered her hair and looked directly at Mrs. Thompson. You encourage this. You called my daughter's hair exotic and dangerous. You need to own your part in this. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Sarah sat. The clerk called the next speaker. Whispered conversations rose like a tide. Sarah felt the room's eyes on her. But Lily reached up, slipping her hand into Sarah's, grounding her once more. After more testimony, the board chair, Mr. Allen, leaned forward. Ms. Johnson, thank you for your remarks, he said, voice measured. We will consider your requests. He glanced at Margaret Carter. Miss Carter, would you like to speak? Margaret Carter stood slowly. She walked to the microphone, hands trembling. The spotlight overhead cast sharp shadows across her face. I am deeply sorry, she began, voice quavering, not just for shaving Lily's hair, but for what I allowed to happen in that room. I let fear and ignorance guide my actions. I saw her braids and thought of lice, and I thought quick, drastic action would save everyone. I did not stop to ask myself if that was right. I'm sorry to Lily, to Sarah, and to every student who felt unsafe in my class. Tears welled in her eyes. Her apology rolled out slowly, each word seeming to cost her something. She looked at Lily and added, I hope you can one day forgive me. Then she turned to the board. I will participate in any training you require. And if it takes volunteering after hours to learn about my students' cultures, I will do it. I owe them and Lily that respect. Silence filled the room. Mrs. Thompson lowered her gaze. The chair tapped the gavel. Thank you, Ms. Carter. We appreciate your commitment. He paused, then addressed the audience. Before we adjourn, Mrs. Thompson would like to say a few words. All eyes shifted. Linda Thompson stood, shoulders stiff. She took a breath. I was wrong, she said, voice low. In my fear of lice, I used words that dehumanized Lily's culture. I encouraged Mrs. Carter to act harshly. I failed Lily as a parent and as a neighbor. I am sorry. I will work with the PDA to raise awareness, to teach inclusivity, and to make sure no child feels othered in our school. Her words were hushed but clear. Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. Mr. Allen nodded and dismissed the meeting. As the crowd rose, Sarah waited a moment, then led Lily toward Mrs. Carter, who stood alone near the front. Lily's steps were tentative, but Sarah stayed close. Mrs. Carter looked down at Lily, then knelt. Lily, she said gently, I'm sorry. She offered her hand. Lily stared for a heartbeat, then reached out and touched Mrs. Carter's fingers. The teacher's eyes glistened. Thank you, Lily whispered. Sarah exhaled, relief and emotion mingling. She guided Lily back toward the door where Mrs. Thompson stood. Linda extended her hand, voice thick. If you can forgive me, she began. Sarah paused, then took Linda's hand. I forgive you, she said, but we need to work on outside. Sunlight had broken through low clouds, casting golden shafts onto the wet pavement. Birds called from budding trees. Lily looked up, her small face bright as she spun in a gentle circle, feeling the breeze on her scalp. Sarah pulled her close, resting her chin on Lily's head. On the drive home, they talked quietly about the board's commitments, new policy drafts, training sessions, community events celebrating diversity. Lily ran her fingers along the brim of her cap. "Do you think they'll keep their promises?" she asked. Sarah glanced at her daughter, heart full, but cautious. "I believe they will try," she said, "and we'll hold them to it." She squeezed Lily's hand. "You were brave today." Lily smiled, a single dimple flickering in her cheek. That evening, Sarah sat by Lily's bedside, reading from a book of fairy tales. Lily's eyes grew heavy, lulled by the gentle rhythm of Sarah's voice. At the last page, Sarah closed the book and brushed a kiss across Lily's forehead. "Good night, my princess," she whispered. Lily drifted to sleep, lips curved in a peaceful smile. Sarah lingered, watching her daughter's calm face. The battles ahead would not be easy. Changing minds and hearts takes time. But today had shown her that courage and honesty could ripple outward, reshaping even the coldest walls. She thought of Lily's hair, of identity and resilience, and felt hope. In the soft lamplight, Sarah whispered a prayer of thanks, then let herself believe the world could learn, could heal, could become a place where every braid mattered. And as she turned off the light, she carried with her the promise of new beginnings and the quiet knowledge that after darkness, even the most fragile seed of change could take root and blossom. The morning sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains as Sarah Johnson lingered at Lily's door. The house felt different now, lighter, as if the walls themselves had loosened after so many tense days. Lily stirred beneath her covers, her small face calm. Sarah bent to brush a kiss on her daughter's forehead. "Ready?" she whispered, voice soft. Lily cracked one eye open, her fingers tangling in the braid Sarah had woven the night before. The braid was still short, but it lay neatly against Lily's neck, a small triumph of care and patience. Lily offered a sleepy nod. Over breakfast, they spoke quietly. Buttered toast, warm applesauce, and the hum of a normal morning. Outside, robins hopped on dew-damp grass, and the breeze carried the first sense of summer. Today was Lily's first day back in Mrs. Carter's class, and Sarah's first chance to see whether the promises made had taken root. The tension in Sarah's chest fluttered like a bird against a cage. They arrived at Oakville Elementary under a sky brushed with pale blue. A new sign hung by the front doors, hand-painted letters in green and gold. Diversity celebrated here. Sarah's breath caught. It was the PDA's gift, organized by parents determined to show that change could bloom. Beneath the sign, children filed in, backpacks swinging, laughter ringing against red brick. Lily paused at the threshold, her small hand slipping into Sarah's. "I'm nervous," she confessed. Sarah squeezed her hand. "You've got this, sweet girl." She opened the door, letting Lily slip inside first. In the hallway, bulletin boards gleamed with student art, maps of the world dotted with flags, poems about belonging, drawings of children holding hands across cultures. Sarah watched Lily's eyes widen. A shy smile bloomed on the girl's face, proof that the world could reflect her own brightness. At the classroom door, Mrs. Carter stood waiting. Her hair was still neat, but her posture was warmer, shoulders unguarded. In her hands, she held a small bouquet of daisies, Lily's favorite. As Lily approached, Mrs. Carter knelt. "Good morning, Lily," she said, voice gentle. "Welcome back." She brushed a stray curl from Lily's forehead. The simple kindness shimmered with sincerity. Inside, the desks were arranged not in harsh rows, but in clusters, each marked by a small flag representing a child's heritage. On the wall hung a banner, "Our Stories Matter." Sarah glimpsed Margaret Carter pointing to it as she spoke with Principal Davies at the back of the room. Across the hall, Mrs. Thompson chatted with a parent about an upcoming cultural fair. The school corridors hummed with a new energy, one of openness rather than fear. Sarah found a spot near the window and watched. Lily settled at her desk, cluster 3, under the Senegal flag, her satchel tucked beneath. Margaret Carter began the day not with roll call, but With a circle, each child shared their name, a story from home, a favorite taste or song. When it was Lily's turn, her voice trembled, then strengthened as she spoke of her braids and how her mother's love helped them grow back. The class listened, rapt, some nodding, others offering gentle smiles. Sarah felt tears prickle her eyes. Forgiveness had grown in that small room, watered by truth and empathy. When Mrs. Carter invited a student to paint flowers on a poster together, Lily's job, Sarah dared to believe that healing could extend beyond apologies into new beginnings. After school, a crowd gathered under the elms for the PDA's cultural fair. Long tables displayed dishes, spicy stews, sweet pastries, fragrant rice dishes. Children ran among booths, collecting stickers for participation. Parents exchanged recipes, laughing in the sunshine. Sarah held Lily's hand as they approached the storytelling corner, where Mrs. Carter sat reading folk tales from around the globe. Lily curled against her mother's side, eyes shining. The world here felt generous, curious, and alive. As they waited in line for the ice cream cart, a special treat sponsored by the board, Sarah watched families share blankets and laughter. She heard Mrs. Thompson speaking into Sarah's ear, "I'm sorry again. Thank you for staying." Sarah nodded, placing a hand on Linda's arm. "We'll keep working at it," she said. Together. That night, Sarah tucked Lily into bed and turned off the lamp. Lily yawned, eyes heavy but happy. "Today was good," she murmured. "I think school can be safe now." Sarah smoothed the braid at Lily's nape. "I think so too," she whispered. Then she sat beside her daughter, pulling out a small journal. "I want to write about this day," she said, pen poised. Lily watched as Sarah wrote the date. At the top, June 2nd, 2025. On the next pages, Sarah wrote not only of accomplishments, but of lessons learned. That fear can drive cruelty and courage can shatter it, that parents and teachers alike must face their biases, that a child's voice, once silenced, can become the clarion call for justice. Beneath her words, she paused, pen hovering, reflecting on her own journey. She acknowledged the anger she'd held and the sorrow that nearly broke her faith in others. But she also honored the hope that perseverance had kindled. In the quiet of a night, Sarah realized the moral of their story. True safety for children comes not only from walls and policies, but from a community's willingness to question itself, to listen, and to change. She thought back to Lily's bare scalp, the shock of the clippers, the betrayal that cut deeper than any blade. And then she thought of Lily's smile today, the daisies, the flags, the story shared. Light and dark, entwined like braids. Sarah closed the journal and whispered a prayer of gratitude. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, reminders that vigilance never sleeps. But for tonight, she allowed herself peace. She switched off the bedside light and slipped from the room, her heart full and her resolve steeled. Outside, the wind rustled the elm leaves, a lullaby of promise. And somewhere in the soft hush, the world shifted a little more, its reflection brighter, broader, more willing to hold every child's story in the light. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.